good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord, and in our news, Barbados commits to protect the rights of domestic workers. Scores of Barbadians are being trained to be agripreneurs. The Royal Barbados Police Force steps up its community policing program. And in sports, New Zealand remains only one of two unbeaten teams at the World Cup as they defeated South Africa today in the most exciting match so far for CWC 2019.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
And in our top story, Barbados is making another commitment to sign on to the International Labour Organization's Convention to protect the rights of domestic workers. Prime Minister Mia Amor Mottley notes that a previous administration spoke about doing so about a decade ago, but didn't follow through. Ms. Mottley was among world leaders addressing the ILO International Labour Conference centenary session over in Switzerland.
We have come to commit once again because we recognize that in our own case, tens of thousands of our own citizens were raised, were nurtured, were born to domestic workers, and irrespective of their circumstances of birth, have risen to make significant contributions not only to our own country, but indeed to regional and international affairs.
Ms. Mottley says Barbados holds on to the principles of yesteryear that have helped shape the labour movement. She says the ideals from the 1930s are as relevant today as they were back then.
They called for equality. They called for fairness. They called for equal opportunity. Have we completed the task? No. Are there still issues that face us? Yes. And I've come here today to confront some of those issues, cognizant that we do so at the very time that the world is prepared to jettison multilateralism and to jettison the voices of those of us who want to finish the journey and to complete the task.
The first cohort of the Farmers Empowerment and Enfranchisement Drive, or FEED program, has officially started training. Over the next 12 weeks, about 140 men and women will be taught a wide variety of farming techniques to start their own agricultural businesses. Our Sharika Griffith has those details.
Suzette Griffith and her son Ryan Smith are two of the participants of the first leg of the program. Ryan has autism, but Suzette is determined to show his disability does not mean inability.
I always thought, he can do something for himself. He's able-bodied. He did some agriculture at school, and I thought that, he can get into agriculture. It would be an interesting area for him. He can focus. It would be therapeutic as well to be into nature. We are nature lovers, and for him to be working, he would see these crops come to fruition, and he would know this is my input. I've made a contribution to society.
Shaunisa Scott and Naika Marshall see the program as an opportunity to expand their agricultural knowledge.
I always had a knack for agriculture. My grandmother, and they're from St. John, more country life. So I heard about it on the radio, and I just thought myself, well, it's something that I would like to, get more familiar with. The more, structured, different approach, a more scientific approach. Because the old people had their own way of doing stuff.
The youngster grew planting lettuce and things from small, so I decided that this would be a good opportunity for me to further my education in farming.
The 12-week program, which officially started Monday, will focus on areas like irrigation, fruit tree farming, apiculture or beekeeping, and pest and disease management. The first cohort will involve training of 140 people, 35 of which are stationed at the Barbados Agricultural Development and Marketing Corporation's base in Fairy Valley, Christchurch. Manager of Agricultural Services with the BADMC, Dr. Jamikul Andwele, says on completion, some farmers will be allocated a plot of land. That land will be leased at a rate of $300 per acre per year or $25 per acre per month. He says they will be given a farming schedule so they know what and how much to produce.
We're looking to get them to plant butternut squash, pumpkin, broccoli. When we look at our food import bill in Barbados, we love broccoli here in Barbados, so we're trying to get some persons to grow some broccoli for us. We contacted the seed company who have sent us some sample seeds. These varieties will be more resistant to the climate here on the island, so we're going to test them, try them, and then once they're successful, we're going to distribute them to the farmers so we can get some person producing broccoli. But other things as well, onions, we want to increase our production of onions on the island, garlic as well.
At least 40% of the harvested crops will be purchased by the BADMC. They will be cleaned, packaged, and distributed to major retail outlets and hotels. Government has allocated $2 million to the program, which Director of the BADMC, Peter Chase, says will be received in tranches. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Sharika. Well, the Royal Barbados Police Force is set to intensify its community policing efforts as it moves to arrest the island's crime problem. And this was revealed by the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Erwin Boyce, this morning at the donation of a retrofitted container for a police outpost in the city. Our Ryan Broom joins us live now with an update. Good evening, Ryan.
Good evening, Lisa. Good evening, viewers. Well, as you would remember, earlier this year, Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley said her team is putting measures to deal with crime and prevent Barbados from being destroyed. Now, the police force's community thrust is part of that undertaking from the Prime Minister. The expansion of community policing is just one aspect of the Royal Barbados Police Force's anti-crime approach. Deputy Police Commissioner Erwin Boyce says the public can expect an increased police presence in some neighborhoods as they move to cut out deviant activities.
There will be a refreshed approach to the execution of community policing plan with the overarching objective of reducing the fear of crime itself, and disorder. Such refreshed approach will include not only directed patrols, but also rotating patrols based on current priorities, as well as problem-solving initiative predicated on collaborative and collaboration and partnerships. In addition, there will be operations in the form of crackdowns, which will involve strong law enforcement effort.
Now, the Deputy Commissioner was speaking at a handover ceremony for a retrofitted container, which will be used as a mobile police outpost in the Lakes Folly, New Orleans, Bridgetown communities. The unit replaces an old outpost placed in that neighborhood since 2012. A major financial injection from the local private sector funded the new outpost. Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Edward Clark, says that body has been working with government and the police for a while to supply needed items.
These included things like the police outposts, provision of cameras, monitoring equipment, and other uses of technology. We understand that there are some other members of the private sector, and we know that have already assisted, like the Barbados Hotel Association, have already assisted in the provision of cameras and technology for the use in the force.
Now, while thanking the BPSA and Container Services for the donation, Acting Attorney General Wilfred Abrams wants other entities to embark on similar initiatives.
I don't know how much it costs to retrofit the container, but while it may be hard for one person or one entity to donate a container or a similar facility, as the Prime Minister is fond of saying, many hands make light work. So it is easy to get involved if you have a will to get involved and work with us to try to make Barbados better.
Now, Lisa, just one further point to make about that particular outpost in the New Orleans Chapman Lane area. The Deputy Commissioner noted that since it was there, hard-working officers have been implementing many successful community programs. Now, he says many of the young residents have also been receiving guidance from lawmen, along with invaluable insight about making positive life decisions. And we know that is certainly important in today's environment.
While the battle to put out the fire at the Sustainable Barbados Recycling Centre continues, Barbadians are being assured that every possible measure is being used to address any health and environmental impact. Lorna Jones explains in this report.
Billowing clouds of smoke above the SBRC, a clear indication we're not out of the woods yet. The main concern for officials at this time, ensuring Barbadians aren't negatively affected by this smoke. During a press conference at the nearby Central Cricket Club, Environment Minister Trevor Prescott noted that as a proactive measure, the QEH and Warren's Polyclinic had been put on notice to deal with people suffering with respiratory ailments. Minister Prescott says they hope to implement house calls for those who can't travel to those locations.
Further discussions after leaving here, I will have with the Ministry of Health so that if there's any residents that are likely to be experiencing problems and they can't get off to the hospital or the polyclinic, I will speak to Minister Bostic and the administration of the QEH to see if we can even allow those officers, the medical staff of the hospital to pay a number of house visits if so required.
Home Affairs Minister Edmund Hinkson revealed all available resources are being directed to the fire.
We have sought to ensure that an adequate amount of equipment, whether it's trucks, excavators, tractors, will be involved in this operation, as well as the manpower is in place to handle it and to deal with this situation. We want the public to be assured that we will get this under control as soon as humanly possible.
Meanwhile, the weather appears to be helping the firefight.
The key thing was to contain the fire, control it as best as we could. We're just managing the smoke now. So the cover material will try to suppress a lot of that, a lot of the smoke and a lot of the flame that's still bubbling on the inside. But that's what we're trying to manage. The rain, which we're all running from, that's a godsend. I mean, that's going to be we need a lot of it. But, you know, it's going to be very important for us in this firefight.
Government has promised to keep the public updated about any further developments in the mangrove area. Lorna Jones, CBC News.
Well, the Hope Foundation is moving to compile a register of Barbadians living with sickle cell anemia. The foundation's president, Shelley Ware, says the first step will include testing all newborns for that condition. In Barbados, the exact number of people affected by the inherited genetic disorder of the red blood cells is unknown. Now, unlike normal blood cells, sickle cells are curved and often block small blood vessels and restrict oxygen supply as they try to move through the body. Now, those blockages can cause periodic episodes of pain for those living with that condition and ultimately cause damage to body parts or organs. Ms. Ware was speaking at the Barbados Defence Force St. Anne's Fort headquarters at a media briefing for World Sickle Cell Day, which is observed annually on June 19th.
Apart from the fear, depression, anxiety, and frustration that can accompany any chronic illness, like, for example, sickle cell, sicklers are also at risk of life-threatening complications, including acute chest syndrome, stroke, and kidney disease. Those sobering facts have been the driving force behind Hope Foundation's quest over the years to have newborn babies in this country tested for the disease.
Now, regarding cures for sickle cell anemia, hematologist Dr. Cheryl Alexis says the survival rates following stem cell transplants and gene therapy have increased significantly.
There are two cures that you can do. One is called a stem cell transplant, where you can remove the bone marrow of the patient and put in normal bone marrow, which is usually from a sibling. Sounds easy, right? Just pull it out and put it in. Not so easy, because everybody has different things that could cause side effects of that. Over the years, the mortality rate has decreased. It used to be as high as 25% in the early things. Now some centers get it down to less than 10%.
Barbadian manufacturers and distributors alike will have the opportunity to have their goods cleared faster when the Electronic Single Window, or ESW, is introduced. Commerce Minister Dwight Sutherland says that the ESW should be in place by year end. He says government is moving to implement the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement provisions.
When we implement the Electronic Single Window, we indeed will have one window where all the various ministries can indeed go into the application through our digital system and indeed approve and regulate trade by one single electronic single window. And indeed, this is one of the facilities that can enhance our trade, because our trading partners, whether they are locally or they are regionally, have the option as well to view our regulation and our approval process through one electronic single window.
Mr. Sutherland says an ongoing two-day workshop with the World Trade Organization Committee will outline several benefits for the island. Well, a Guyanese of Ascension and a St. Lucian are among the 12 artistes who will be seeking to wrestle the International Bashment Soca from Lil-Rick come July the 6th. Producers 40 Entertainment said that they received 98,000 votes assigned for them, that the 2019 version of the competition will be the biggest ever. Now, 3 women and an unprecedented 8 first-timers are also in that lineup. Blaze Antonio of Guyana, Sita the lyrical diva of St. Vincent, and Subans and Mighty will represent St. Lucia in the competition, which is now in its 4th year. The finalists are Blaze Antonio, Jaguar the Champ, King Baba FM, Mara Rose, Marsville, Mole, Sita the lyrical diva, SK, Subans and Mighty, Sugary, Underdog, and Walks. Now, this is the very first time that Stiffy, the 2-time king, will not take part in the Bashment Soca finals. Regional stories now, and Guyana's President David Granger says the country will be heading to the polls. The announcement comes after the Caribbean Court of Justice ruled the opposition's no confidence motion was properly passed. President Granger, however, notes that the current voters list is outdated and corrupted, as we hear in this report from NCN.
In his address to the nation, President David Granger said it is now clear that the Guyanese people need certainty about the future, and the next step will be to head to the polls. As such, he believes that it is essential to hold fair, free, and credible elections, but noted that the country cannot proceed on the current list of voters since it is outdated and corrupted.
It may hold as many as 200,000 incorrect entries. What is more, those who have reached the age of 18 years since the last elections are not in it. The Constitution entitles all citizens over the age of 18 the right to vote. It is a democratic imperative that house-to-house registration be completed swiftly so we can have an election at the earliest opportunity.
Initially, the chairman of the Guyana Elections Commission had informed the president that the earliest possible date for elections will be November 2019. The president says he now awaits a recommendation from GCOM on a specific date, after which he will issue a proclamation.
Well, Grenada will be adopting a new drug and alcohol policy for primary and secondary schools at the start of the new school term. We hear more in this MTV report.
Dave Alexander, drug control officer within the drug control unit, says the security and life of the students are of primary concern.
And so we would be underscoring this in the policy this time around, that the sale of alcohol at school functions is prohibited. And we have defined and explained what is meant by school functions, particularly events involving children.
Alexander made mention of other issues that are underscored within the policy.
In the previous policy and under the Education Act, provision is made for the suspension of children from school for drug-related offences. While the law remains, and we consulted with the Ministry of Legal Affairs on this, and they did indicate that we can use another method. And so, come September, we'll be focusing quite a lot on in-school suspension. That is, the child commits a drug-related offense. We would be doing investigations, etc., but we want them to stay around school a bit.
Dominicans involved in cadence and other Creole music genres have been told they need to push the music further. Several pioneers in the field have been recognized for their contributions over the years. We have a report from Marpin TV.
Music made 30 and 40 years ago, but are still relevant today. When we hear Midnight Groovers, a completely different style, possibly the only style like this in the world. Very evident when they played and they performed at the World Trade Center. People from all nationalities were amazed at the sound coming from the Midnight Groovers. I was fortunate to have been there. When you listen to Exile, what a completely different type of cadence calypso music. When you listen to Bells Combo, completely different, but then all, according to Gordon, a fusion of rhythmical patterns.
Award recipients included Midnight Groovers promoting Karas music for 50 years, Gordon Henderson and Exile One, 50 years in the Karas music business, WCK, the original pioneers of bouillon music for 32 years in the business, Cletus Halibut Abraham of Bell's Combo fame, 46 years in promotion of the art form, Leroy Wadix Charles, also recognized for his invaluable contribution to the promotion of Karas music and the World Creole Music Festival.
Now, before we go, we would like to say congratulations to Zaria Hinson and her proud mom, our CBC colleague, Alicia Hinkson. Now, Zaria is the top girl at Charles F. Broome after her performance in the Common Entrance exam, and she will be attending Harrison College come September. So congrats again to Zaria.